Both the Peace and Security Service were clear that there should be no substantial increase in risk.
To accommodate colleagues, but time is against us and we must now move on. Point of order, Mr David Wright.
Mr Speaker, you'll be aware that the Cabinet Office have today tabled a written ministerial statement entitled Coalition Government Midterm Review. This is the document, Mr Speaker. Together in the national interest, there's nothing like starting the new term with a bit of comedy, is there? The TV coverage over the Christmas period has been pretty poor in comedy terms. Could you tell me, or give me some advice, Mr Speaker, because clearly there's been a press conference in Downing Street today where the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister have been answering questions on this document and the future programme of the government, but nobody in this House has had the opportunity to ask any question of the Executive about this document. This is supposedly a further relaunch of this government. Why isn't a minister here to answer questions on the failure of this coalition government to implement its policies in the first 2.5 years of this government? And why isn't there a minister here answering on this document?
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his attempted point of order, which may find some resonance with the Telford Bugle or some other similar purveyor of information to the public. What I say to the honourable gentleman, the Shropshire Star, actually an extremely illustrious newspaper, and I'm grateful to the honourable members for pointing that out. The honourable gentleman will have an opportunity of questions to the Deputy Prime Minister tomorrow and questions to the Prime Minister on Wednesday. It is a review document. If there are substantive policy announcements to make flowing from it, then of course individual responsible ministers will doubtless make them to the House ere long. If there are no further points of order, but there is. Point of order, Mr Peter Bone.
Mr Speaker, further to that point of order, could he give advice to the House how the leaking of that document in television studios by ministers, or even perhaps the Prime Minister, is in order with the announcement of new policy to this House first?
I think my response to the honourable gentleman is the same as, substantively the same as my response to the honourable member. It is a review document. I don't wish to disappoint the honourable gentleman, but I have not yet read it, and I have no immediate plans to do so. If there are substantive new policy announcements flowing from it, then of course ministers must make them to the House. We'll leave it there for the time being. The honourable gentleman's got that cheeky grin on his face, which suggests to me he knows that he was slightly pushing his luck. Point of order, Mr Paul Flynn.
Only about once every 2 or 3 centuries does this House consider the supremely important matter of the succession of the head of state. The government proposed to rush through both houses this bill in a single day. This is not possible to have a proper debate on the new clauses and amendments to that bill. And the anxiety about this matter is not confined to commoners.
I know what the honourable gentleman tells me, but I know that he will appreciate that the programme motion for such matters is not a matter for me. The honourable gentleman may be very genuinely concerned about the length of time available for debate on these issues, and his concerns will have been heard, but to put it bluntly, there's nothing I can do about it now, and I'm not sure there's anything I can do about it at any stage. But the honourable gentleman has vented his displeasure, and I hope that at least gives him some satisfaction. If there are no further points of order, we come now to the main business. Order. Always grateful to the honourable gentleman for his helpful observations from a sedentary position, but we'll come now to the main business. The clerk will now proceed to read the orders of the day. Point of order, Mr. Chris Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the irregular use of the Queen's name to influence a decision of the House is unconstitutional in principle, as you all know, because it says so on page 440 of Erskine May. Can you confirm that this will equally apply to the consideration of the Royal Succession Bill, as the Father of the House and the Prime Minister earlier on, it seemed to me, got perilously close, though they're wily birds and they didn't step over the line, to praying Her Majesty's opinion in aid? Can you also confirm that when second reading comes, that if the government signifies that Her Majesty has consented to place her prerogative at our disposal, this will signify neither the approval nor the disapproval of the bill, the contents of the bill, or any amendments that may be considered in this House by Her Majesty, and that it will be entirely for us to decide how to proceed.
Short answer in response to the honourable gentleman's point of order is that I think that I can offer him the comfort and assurance that he seeks. I'm grateful to him for his point of order and for his courtesy in giving me advance notice of it. I listened very carefully to the exchanges in Prime Minister's questions, and I did not think that they offended against our rule, against the use of the sovereign's name to influence debate. I took the question to be primarily a factual one, which, as Erskine May notes on page 441, is perfectly orderly. When the House comes to debate the succession to the Crown Bill, however, the Chair will be alert to ensure that the guidance on using the name of the Queen or other members of the royal family to influence debate, which is indeed set out on page 440 of Erskine May, is borne carefully in mind. The question of Queen's consent is a separate matter. The House's future business at page 2430 notes that consent is to be signified before the House embarks upon the second reading debate. This is a technical issue when the Queen's prerogative or interest may be thought to be engaged in a proposed measure. It simply confirms that the House has the freedom to legislate as it sees fit. It does not in any way convey the personal view of the sovereign. I think that is helpful to the honourable gentleman and indeed to the House. Point of order, Mr. Paul Flynn.
On a different subject, you will recall, Mr. Speaker, that in the past, on 2 occasions, the names of the fallen in Afghanistan were not announced at Prime Minister's question time. They were announced on a Wednesday and a Tuesday. And after protest from the House, the practice of announcing the names of Prime Minister's time were restored. You may have noticed today that the name of the soldier who was recently tragically killed in Afghanistan wasn't announced at Prime Minister's question time. There may be some good reason for this, although the press say that the family have been informed. And could you ensure that this practice is resumed so that we can be reminded of the true cost of war?
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman. I did not have advance notice. I make no complaint about that fact of the honourable gentleman's point of order, and I do not claim to be entirely cited on the subject, but one possible explanation might be that, let me put it this way, the name, to my knowledge, has not been publicly disclosed. But the wider point, to which I know the honourable gentleman and others attach great importance, has been forcefully made by the honourable gentleman, and I hope that it will be noted in the appropriate quarters. If there are no further points of order...
And that is why it's so important that universities lead this process.
Order. Yes, but the honourable gentleman, who should have been behind the Speaker's chair, has been rescued by a rather timely point of order, although I don't think it was designed for that purpose. The honourable gentleman should be behind the chair. That's where he should be, not playing with his iPad. Point of order, Mr. Barry Sherman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, earlier in the statement, I criticised the Minister for the aggressive way in which he handled and introduced her statement. And I did so on the basis of a long knowledge of educational statesmen in this House. 2 members, following my question, suggested I was being sexist. Mr. Speaker, I was not. Not one word of what I said was sexist in any way, and I deeply resent the fact that 2 members used their question to suggest that case.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his attempted point of order. What I would simply say is it's not a matter for the chair. Neither of the members said anything disorderly. The honourable gentleman has placed his attempted and, in his view, clear rebuttal on the record, and I hope that the honourable gentleman will take it in a good spirit if I say that in May of this year, all being well, the honourable gentleman, the member for Huddersfield, will celebrate 34 years uninterrupted service in this House, and I'm sure he can bear the burden of those criticisms with stoicism and fortitude. And we'll leave it there for today. If there are no further points of order, we come now to the presentation of Bill. Mr. Stephen, presentation of Bill Mr. Stephen Williams. Point of order, Mr. Edward Lee.
Mr. Speaker, you will know, of course, that next Tuesday is the second reading of the same-sex marriage bill. This obviously raises profound moral, emotional and legal issues, but I would argue, Mr. Speaker, that it also raises very important constitutional issues affecting the Church of England and the status of marriage itself. Have you had any intimation, Mr. Speaker, from the government that in order to ensure proper scrutiny of this bill, that the committee stage will be taken on the floor of the House?
Order. I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his point of order. The short answer to his inquiry is no. I have received no such intimation. Of course, the Chair is always in favour of more debate rather than less, and debate that is as accessible as possible. But I think it only right to say to the honourable gentleman and to the House that the decision as to the type of committee to which a bill is committed is a matter for the House. It's not a matter of order for the Chair. The Chair, needless to say, will always do as the House instructs. I hope that's clear. I'm grateful. Tim. Point of order, Mr. Jim McGovern.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the 4th of December, I participated in a Westminster Hall debate on the subject of Remploy, and at that debate, I asked the Minister if she would visit the Remploy factory in Dundee, and she very generously said that she would, and I expect her to be there next Monday, 4th February. Also at that debate, I asked her if she would speak to the Minister for Procurement for the Ministry of Defence with a view to awarding contracts of Remploy for producing uniforms, manufacturing uniforms for the armed forces. I have yet to hear a response. You may be aware, Mr. Speaker, that I tried to intervene on a debate on the 15th of December. I raised it as a point of order on the 16th of December, but I have yet to receive a response from the Minister. Could you advise me, how long should I wait for a response from a government minister?
I fear I can offer little assistance to the honourable gentleman in this matter. There are two things perhaps to mention to him. First, the order paper is a route that he can pursue, tabling questions to highlight his continuing concerns and the absence thus far of a response to them. Secondly, I simply note in passing that the Deputy Leader of the House is in his place. In my experience, the Leader of the House and the Deputy Leader of the House are always attentive to parliamentary courtesies, and if the honourable gentleman has been promised a response or some other commitment has been made to him which has not yet been honoured, I think that will be, I say in all seriousness to the honourable gentleman, a source of some legitimate concern to the Deputy Leader. Indeed, it's conceivable even that the two of them may wish to have a chat outside the chamber. I don't know. We shall see. If there are no further points of order, we come now to the main business. I was going to move to the 10-minute rule motion, but not before a point of order from Mr. George Galloway.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I wonder if you've had time to consider and reflect on the answer you gave to the member for Cardiff West yesterday in relation to the honourable member for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross, whose nobility of character is of course beyond compare and legendary, as attested to by his bravura performance yesterday. But he cannot surely be a noble member of the House of Commons. It must be many centuries since any such appellation were permissible. Will you rule that, however noble the character of the honourable member, he cannot be referred to in here as the noble member for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross?
Grateful to the honourable gentleman for his exquisite point of order, of which I had no advance notice whatsoever, but I, of course, recall the exchange yesterday. What I would say to the honourable gentleman is that it is possible to be both noble and to sit in the House of Commons, with particular reference to honorific titles, which is, I think, the matter that the honourable gentleman has in mind. My recollection is that the Modernisation Committee issued a report on this matter recommending the substantial reduction in the use of such titles. As a consequence of that, I understand the present situation to be that their use in debate is a matter not of order but of taste. I hope that's helpful to the honourable gentleman. Point of order. I think the honourable gentleman started a trend. Point of order, Mr. Mike Gapes.
Mr. Speaker, this morning the Care Quality Commission published a damning report on accident and emergency services at Queen's Hospital, Romford. The government and the Secretary of State for Health confirmed it in an answer to me earlier this month, still intend to go ahead with the closure of accident and emergency at King George Hospital, Ilford, in my constituency. Can we have an urgent statement from the Secretary of State for Health on the implications of the CQC report for that decision?
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman, but I hope he won't take offence, because this is an extremely serious matter, when I say that I think he's 24 hours or thereabouts ahead of himself. What the honourable gentleman should do, and it is a matter of extreme importance to his constituents, I acknowledge, is ensure that he's in his place tomorrow for business questions, which will afford him, if he catches my eye, which I think he might, the chance to raise the matter with the Leader of the House. The Leader of the House is in his place now and has heard what he said, but he should come back tomorrow and have a go in the proper forum. We'll leave it there for now. Point of order, Mr. John Hemming.
Mr. Speaker, departments of state have varied records as to their quality and timeliness of answering questions. The Department of Health is very good. The Department for Education, however, has been particularly bad. So bad, in fact, that there was an evidence session with a Minister of State in December at the Procedure Select Committee and an evidence session with the Secretary of State last week looking at the issue of why the department was so woefully bad. At the Procedure Select Committee last week, a list of 36 questions that were asked in 2012 but were not yet answered was given to the department. As at yesterday, 31 of those questions remain to be answered. Would it be in order for me to make an application for an urgent question to ask the Secretary of State for an explanation of the departmental failure if some urgent progress is not made?
Order. The matter that the honourable gentleman raises is, I believe, the subject of current investigation by the Procedure Committee, of which the honourable gentleman is himself a distinguished member. I think that the House should await the outcome of the committee's deliberations before considering the matter on the floor. But the honourable gentleman has made his point, and it will have been heard in the appropriate quarters. Point of order, Angela Smith.
I wrote to the Right Honourable Member for Sheffield Hallam, asking him to desist from accepting an invitation to open a relocated business premises in my constituency on 1st of February, which is, of course, tomorrow. I have only today received a response from the Honourable Member in which he asserts that he will be attending the event in his capacity as a local MP, having been invited by the company due to a personal connection. Can I ask you, Mr. Speaker, for your guidance on what appears to me as an arrogant and blatant disregard of the protocol governing relationships between MPs and their constituencies?
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable lady for her point of order. The short answer is that what is required in these circumstances is notification. It isn't, however, the case under our procedures that a member is prohibited from visiting and making a public appearance in another honourable member's constituency. I don't seek in any sense to duck the issue, but it isn't an issue ultimately for the chair. It is a matter for resolution if possible, but certainly for discussion between neighbouring members. It is very clear to me that the honourable lady is extremely dissatisfied. She may wish to raise this matter further with the Right Honourable Member for Sheffield Hallam, but I must say on the matter specifically of order, there has been no breach thereof. I think we will have to leave it there for today. Order.
The clerk will now proceed to read the orders of the day.